Welcome to From a Woman to a Leader, a podcast dedicated to discussing the challenges and providing tips for women in tech leadership. Hi, I'm your host, Limor Bergman-Gross, and in each episode, we'll hear from other successful women in tech, sharing their stories, insights, and advice. Join us as we empower each other to reach our full potential in the tech industry. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From a Woman to a Leader. And I have a great pleasure speaking today with Calista Phair. And Calista is a Chief Talent Officer, and her expertise are in talent consulting, training and development, and recruitment strategy. She's also known as Talent Fairy Godmother for connecting small to mid-sized businesses with top talent. Calista has worked for prominent companies like Amazon, UMPC, and Wells Fargo, and has won an awards for her work, including being named 2016 Charlotte Mecklenburg, I don't know if to pronounce it properly, Black Chamber of Commerce 30 under 30 recipient. Hi, Calista. So happy to have you here.
Hello, it's so nice to be here, and thank you so much for the opportunity to have a chance to sit with you today.
And today we are going to talk about networking one-on-one, learning the art of individually branding yourself. So before we start talking about this, why don't you introduce yourself, Calista? Because I don't know if I've done a good enough job. So
no, you did amazing.
Share with our audience maybe what I missed.
Yeah. So yes, as you mentioned, I am known as your Talent Fairy Godmother. I will say that I like water views. I like traveling, and I'm married and I have a little son. So I understand what having a work-life balance means as well. And being busy too. But yes, I love the opportunity to be able to give back to people, share my experience of being a working professional, and also just my experience in general of working in my career. And hopefully the conversation today, people will be able to apply it in their day-to-day lives.
Perfect. Yes, I think that's going to be super, super valuable. So first, let's talk about what is it even, networking one-on-one. What do you even mean by that?
Yeah. So ever since I was little, I was around my son's age, which he's 3. And I was that kid that would walk up to people in preschool and offer them to be my friends. I would sit and talk to kids that were kind of by themselves and try to galvanize everybody. So I've always been an extrovert, the person that knew everybody's name on the playground when we left type of kid. And that has kind of propelled me to know that connecting is really an art, the ability to be able to communicate with different people and be unafraid to put yourself out there, even sometimes be vulnerable to put yourself out there with strangers and people that you don't know. That different people may not necessarily naturally, possess that skill. They may be introverts. They may be afraid to send a LinkedIn request to somebody or let somebody know what they want to do. And so the concept of knowing how to network came from different friends asking me, I'm going to this networking event, or my job has me going to this conference. How do I connect with people? What do I do? Instead of just going to the sessions and going back to my room. So I just found myself coaching people that I was friends with in their day-to-day lives and realizing, let me actually develop a somewhat training to kind of help those put themselves out there and maybe learn how to connect with people.
Wow. I envy you, first of all. And that's an enormous strength, right? To be super connected, to be, comfortable with connecting with people, to have that naturally. You can share that I'm one of those people that you're talking about, right? That basically I feel always, no matter how many times I do it, I feel uncomfortable. I just was last week, I was in Boston in a conference. I was participating in a panel. And, you know, how it is in conferences, part of it is like schmoozing, right? In networking, and you get to a room full of people and you don't know anyone. And how do you? And I walk with a glass of wine. I'm like embarrassed. What am I doing? But how am I going to approach people? And I see, it seems like everyone else know each other and you don't know anyone.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, it's true. And I think that being able to, I tell people, for example, if you use that example of yourself at the conference, you know, maybe if you start small, okay, when I leave this event, I am going to just talk to 3 people, even if it is just a hello, you know, what type of wine do you have? Oh, I have Merlot or Pinot Noir. It could just be even just something as simple as, I like your dress, and you compliment someone and it bursts into a conversation. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, hello, my name is Calista and I want to do X, Y, and Z, and I want to grow your businesses and your company. It could just be basic conversation. You know, where did you fly in from, or where did you travel from? And I think that kind of breaks the ice and makes it a little bit easy for you to develop those conversations with people. So for those out there listening, think in your mind, let me, at least if I go to my next networking event or I have to do that, let me make a note of, I'm just going to talk to 3 people. And if I talk to more than that, I checked my box. But that can kind of put you in a mindset of just having conversations with 3 people, start small, and then it grows.
I love that. So basically, okay, stretch yourself, set a goal, and then start with casual conversations with people, right? And smile. Smiling is important.
Yes.
And start kind of casually asking people about where they're from. What are kind of typical questions I can ask someone I don't know?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, where are they from is a really interesting thing. Maybe even where did they grow up, you know, because where somebody maybe came from, you know, like I live in the North Carolina, Charlotte area, but I'm from Seattle. So maybe having that type of conversation, maybe even asking, you know, what did they enjoy about that event? Or if there was a panel or a conference conversation, you know, oh, did you check out, you know, such and such? What did you like about it? That's really an easy opener there. Even if it is, a lot of times at networking events, you may have cocktails or you may have food. So, you know, oh, what are you drinking? Or, you know, what did you eat? That's a pretty easy opener there too. Even what do you do? You know, what is their career? What do you do? Those are some easy kind of opener questions.
Yeah, those are really useful. And I wanted to ask you, it may sound like stupid question, probably comes naturally to you, but you know, a lot of times when I enter a room, and I literally done that several times last week, and you're in a room full of people. Yes, and I have the goal of talking with 3 people at least, and I have the list of questions. How do I make the initial contact, right? Because there are people that are either going through in the room or groups that are talking. How do I even, this is like beyond the words.
Yes.
Like,
how do I even get to stand by
the
person?
Yeah. And create the initial kind of contact.
Yes. I would say that one of the things is in walking, maybe if you see a group, if you kind of stand to the distance and you listen or overhear some of their conversation, a lot of times the group will move and say, oh, come on in, you know, we're just chatting or so on. So that is really an easy way to make yourself not sound, you know, or be standoffish, right? Where I'm just standing in the corner, right? I'm at least approaching, but I'm standing close enough to where people can see me and notice me and invite me in. Another thing is if you see an individual that also is standing by themselves, to just walk up to them and, you know, say hello, you know, how are you? And maybe ask one of those introductory questions there. You can also, even if there's a group, you know, excuse me, is anybody sitting here? Do you mind if I, you know, take a seat? And then you can engage and join in the conversation. So those 3 ways are usually how I enter into spaces where I am coming by myself and I am forced to kind of have these connections with people that I didn't come with. And you'd be really surprised. There's actually a group of women that I met at a great organization called the HR Professionals of Charlotte. And we all came individually to an event. And there was groups of people and, somebody standing off to the side, somebody said, "Excuse me." And, I asked, was somebody sitting at a chair? And that particular group, we stayed, we chatted, we laughed, we talked. We actually closed the event down and was standing outside of the restaurant. And we exchanged information with each other. And we have a group text together. And
Wow.
We've been able to meet up and do brunch. We've done dinner with each other. And that was all off of meeting one time at an event. But we have shared information about different events that are going on, jobs, but also kind of formed personal relationships where, we've gone to brunch together, maybe gone out together, but all of us came to a networking event ourselves. And now we've kind of formed this relationship with each other. So that also is a way where sometimes you don't know how going somewhere by yourself can actually birth a little bit more.
Yeah, and I would say that the benefit of going by yourself, although it sometimes is intimidating, is that it forces you, right? It forces you to meet people you haven't met before. Like in the event that was last week, I saw there were two women that came from the same company, and I kept bumping into them throughout the events. We chatted several times, but I noticed that they always kept with each other, right? There were always the two of them, and less about mingling with the crowd. So when you come by yourself, you're, making yourself open up,
Right.
meet new people. You don't have any other choice other than just standing there and not talking with anyone, obviously.
Right. And in a lot of ways, it allows you to meet different people that is outside of your friend group. We all have our friends or colleagues that we've known for many, many years, and we have a personal relationship with them. But being able to step out of your comfort zone and form new relationships with potential business partners or colleagues, clients, maybe even potential employers, allows you to just expand your network. And so it really allows you to get outside of what your normal core group could be. And those could be allies, maybe advocates for you, people that have different connections that you don't have that can kind of put you in new spaces.
Absolutely. And we talked about networking in a, face-to-face event. What about networking virtually? Let's say on LinkedIn or other
Yes.
places.
Yes. Well, I do want to say that you have an amazing training on how to actually, transform your LinkedIn to make it so that employers are looking at you for job opportunities. And that has changed the way that I've looked at my LinkedIn and I've formulated it. But now that you've done that, right, and you have the skills to already have your LinkedIn, a lot of times, which I'm sure people get tons of connection requests all the time. And sometimes those connection requests just end up being, yes, I'm connected with you. You never talk to that person. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they do. And you just end up having hundreds or thousands of connection requests of people that you don't know. And it is good to sometimes send a message to somebody, hello, my name is such and such. I'm interested in doing X, Y, and Z job. I have these skill sets and this background. I would love to connect with you to learn more about you and your work. And to me, I feel like setting up those informal 15-minute coffee chats, telling somebody that you're only going to talk to them for 15 minutes allows them to know that I don't have to block off an hour in my calendar. We may not necessarily even have to do a Zoom. Okay, doing a coffee chat for 15 minutes is easy, and it may give you a little bit more time to connect with more people. And so this really can open the door up for someone to be able to connect with you, talk to you. But I feel like having more organic conversations opens the door for better relationships long term than sending a sales pitch for 2 paragraphs and then sending your resume or information about your company. People may not necessarily open it.
Absolutely. So how do you do that? You just notice people that you're interested connecting to, and then you send them a connection request with that message?
Yeah. So one, it can either be if somebody is sending you a connection request, then you can respond in that way to say, let's do a 15-minute chat or so on there. I recommend for people that are job seekers to look at individuals of companies that you want to work at or positions of places that you want to be. Meaning if I'm a manager and I know that I want to be a VP or director, let me look on LinkedIn at people that have that role and send them a request. But in your request, you can actually customize it. So even if you don't have a LinkedIn premium account, you can connect with them, but maybe add a personal note. It's only going to give you 150 characters, so you can't write a very long message, but just saying, I would love to chat with you 15 minutes and learn about your position and what you do and how did you get there, just to kind of make a connection in that way. I do recommend doing that. And that's how you kind of reach out to people. LinkedIn has a lot of groups. So if you're in a group, you can even have the opportunity to make a post in a group and say, I'm open to networking. I would love to just chat to build a relationship with people and let people reach out to you, or connect with individuals in that group so that you can be able to learn more about who they are and what they do.
Yeah. And definitely, when you connect to someone, I always recommend sending a personalized message. And if you're using LinkedIn on your phone, you need to be careful, not hit the connect button, but there are like the 3 dots and then personalized invite, and then put your message there. It's much, much better than just sending a connection request, especially if this person doesn't know you.
Yes, very true. And it allows them to be able to put some context for who you are, what you do. And then, it opens the door up for even more conversations. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a job seeker, and obviously nowadays is not easy, right? For job seekers, there are more job seekers than jobs.
Yes.
What would you recommend someone to do to stand out?
Yes. So using LinkedIn is definitely something that can help you along the way. Being able to have yourself, position on there. So whether you're making posts every day or once a week, just being able to show yourself as a strategic thinker or thought leader in the space that you want to be in, it just allows more people to see who you are. I think also being able to make sure that your resume is mirrored the same way on LinkedIn, because I know a lot of times people just have their job and they just list it and list the dates, but they may not highlight things that they've done, or they don't have that descriptive part on LinkedIn. That is very helpful, because as a recruiter and someone who has used LinkedIn, those key words that are on there make a difference. They highlight when they're searching for someone that is an engineer or someone that's in marketing or financial services, or, in science or chemistry. They're looking for certain core competencies, skill sets. Even in government spaces, I'm looking for public affairs. I'm looking for lobbyists thing. And so those things highlight if they're on your LinkedIn profile. If you just have your job listed and you don't have any descriptives there, you're kind of missing the opportunity to show up in searches. So it's really important. I tell everybody, once you do your resume and you have it edited, just copy and paste it right over to your LinkedIn, because it makes it easy for people to really see what you did in those positions, because a lot of companies may look at your LinkedIn first before they even reach out for the resume.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you something I was always curious about that. As someone who is in the recruiting space, I always wonder why companies want a resume if I apply on LinkedIn. Why do they also need my resume? And what should be the difference between the two?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, even though that you have your resume on there, it still is just a social media platform, right? So it may not necessarily tell the whole story. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of people that don't. I did some research and it said that only about 40% of people that are on LinkedIn have it up to date. So a lot of times LinkedIn doesn't tell the full picture of who someone is. And a lot of times the resume needs to be put into their internal system for HR purposes. They also use the resume as a way to make salary negotiations and things because they look at your experience, they look at your education, and that's how your salary is determined based on your resume. So that is why it's important to use your resume in addition to LinkedIn.
And let's assume my LinkedIn profile is up to date and includes all the information. Should I put any things on the resume that aren't on the LinkedIn profile, or I can just basically have it completely identical?
So you can have it completely identical. I do recommend, though, your LinkedIn your resume is going to tell a different story, not necessarily an objective statement, but more like a professional statement of who you are, what type of person you are. That is not necessarily maybe the same story that's on LinkedIn. LinkedIn may have a little bit more of a storytelling feel about who you are as a person, what you did. That story on your resume may be a little bit more professional in a sense of, I possess these workforce qualities. I have 10 years of experience in blank, blank, blank. Your LinkedIn profile may tell a story about how you got into the industry that you were in, and may not be a story that would be told on your LinkedIn as well. Also, I would say that, your resume kind of highlights a lot more descriptives of what you've done in the particular jobs, but it also you're able to see it a little bit clearly on paper because your LinkedIn, you have links to different things on there. You have recommendations, you have skills, and how many people said that you did X, Y, and Z skill set. So your resume kind of is your LinkedIn profile, but in a much snapshot approach.
Yeah, completely understand. And now I want to talk a little bit about women and women of color. And what kind of differences do you see with women versus men with regards to resumes and LinkedIn that you think they should pay more attention to?
Yes, I would definitely want to speak on that. And as somebody that has done diversity training in the talent acquisition space, working with executives and HR teams on how they should make more inclusive practices, but also doing recruitment for organizations that are not as diverse, that are trying to grow and expand their pipeline. One of the things is there are tons of barriers to entry. And so, meaning I may be, which I am, an African-American female that hasn't been able to be in a manager role with any company just because someone may have not liked me as a person because I'm a woman. Maybe during the time that I gave birth to a child, I was up for promotion. And so now it went to a male and didn't go to me. Or I may have never even had the opportunity to be validated by my manager to even go up for a promotion. So I didn't get it. I may be doing all of these special projects with the management teams, still be working with them and sitting alongside them in board meetings, acting in those functions and capacities, but I'm not given that title. So if I apply for a job and they look on my LinkedIn and they look at my resume, oh, well, this person isn't a manager, they're just a lead. So they don't have the opportunity to go, why are we even looking at Calista for this position? There was a video that I saw that talked about the average person of color has only 3 out of 5 of the boxes that are needed for most job positions due to some of those factors. And so a lot of hiring teams want individuals to check all 5 out of 5 of the boxes, not understanding that this person really should have been a manager 8 years ago. But because of not given the opportunity or not having an ally in the space, they've been hindered. And so here we are, and wanting to be more inclusive per se, we're also creating barriers too. You have certain companies that have their profile schools. Well, we want individuals to come from these schools. Well, a lot of those schools aren't historically Black colleges, universities, or HSIs, where Hispanic populations are. And so we're omitting and eliminating where these individuals can even come from because we want them to only come from these particular institutions. So it definitely is something that companies have to be aware of, and also you as a job seeker have to navigate. And it can be very difficult. I know in my particular case of living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I found more opportunities once I moved and I relocated than I did when I was living there. So sometimes you have to make a decision with your family. Am I in a place that is even open to the type of jobs that I want to have, and that they're open to me as a woman of color? And if not, do I have to leave and relocate to kind of find my ability to grow?
Yeah. Wow. So many valuable things. And I want to follow up on two different things, but let's start with the women themselves. Let's say I'm a woman of color and I have done, as you said, I've done a manager job, but I was, for whatever reasons, not promoted, and I was a lead. But from all aspects of the day-to-day job, I did a manager job. I am capable. I have the experience. How do I present myself, both in LinkedIn resume and in interviews, as someone who is capable doing a manager job?
Yeah. So one of the things is putting on your LinkedIn, the amount of people that you managed, the type of projects that you led, being able to say that I managed X, Y, and Z. I led, I was the program manager or project manager for that. Listing those out is very good. And being able to talk about how you increase the goals or productivity of an organization is good. So putting data points, it doesn't matter if you don't have to be in technology to list data. So, I'm in the talent acquisition HR space. I have data. I increased this region by 130%. I was able to increase our visibility with doing recruitment by X. So I think being able to put that in numbers is good for them to be able to see it and know that, okay, you had a goal of 40, but you actually came in and blew it out the park